So hi, I'm Will. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I picked up with it, so it will be nice and cold. So hi, I'm Will Gray, for those who don't know me. And today I'm here to talk about my journey through health and social care and have like how to be in for questions. So the first place I lived was here. When I was 16, decided it was time to invite the family home. There were a few issues. My sister wasn't well, and as I decided I would move. I don't remember much planning, but one day I remember just going to see this property in Ferry Hills, I guess. Pretty scary. Still being in 5th year at a local academy, moving house, moving on independent living, but really wasn't independent living. It didn't teach me the fact, and I realised when it didn't, about the fact you've got council tax, you've got rent, bills, everything else. So, well, that's a wee joke about this house. I decided for my 18th birthday that I would save up and get a new fish tank and a coffee table. One of those, I'm sure we'll all remember, one of those cheap IKEA coffee tables that you could put together in 30 seconds with no instructions. And unfortunately, the fish tank broke. 20 gallons of water all over the floor. But it was funny because there wasn't a blame culture. Because the next day on the on-call notes, we had to phone the on-call and we presented some people locally was CPR given to fish. Now, I have an animal care and I don't know how to give CPR. I had many happy years there, many happy years. But unfortunately, due to a round of council cuts and council cutbacks back in 2007, they decided to sell the property. So it's time for me to move. Now, where did I move to? So I moved to here, Harrow Road, for 40 minutes away from everything. Had to change GP, but at the same time, I was dealing with the death of my grandmother. My dad's mum, who I was very close to, and who saw me through some challenges. Dealing with that, dealing with moving house, I didn't realise how much my mental health was going downhill. It started to deteriorate, and pretty much I started shopping on Amazon, buying rubbish to make myself happy, and to just pretty much get a buzz. I then had another close death to a friend, and that affected my mental health. I did have support, but they just came and checked really that I was okay. And of course, we can all fall down and say, if I said to everybody in the room, how are you feeling? Everybody would say, oh, I'm fine, I'm okay. So yeah, so that happened. I had no filing system, 21 years old, 2-bedroom house, no filing system, knew nothing about money. So I put in bills and drawers and everything like that. So that was the start of me getting ill. It came to a head when I thought, oh my word, here's the sheriff officers coming to my door, because I had debts to Sky TV, Lansing Housing, and a whole other providers. So unfortunately, I got ill. Back in September 2008, I got ill. I was detained under the Mental Health Act. I can remember it. Can't remember the 28 days being detained, but I remember the detainment meeting. Sitting in a room, no smaller than a cupboard, with an on-call social worker, an on-call psychiatrist, and 2 nurses. That was it. They said that I was ill, I couldn't go home. I thought, what? I'm not ill. No way. But yes, I was. And I don't remember much about those 28 days. But while I was there, I decided not to go back to my flat, to go back to almost go back to basic support and try and rebuild my life. I had a care manager, so we decided to look at somewhere different. Obviously, I knew there was nothing after 28 days, and emergency place was where I moved to. I moved to a nursing home, 22-year-old in a nursing home. For anyone who's ever worked or been in a nursing home, I know why they say it's God's way to move. You get up in the morning, you're plugged in front of the telly, and by night, if I was still there, I'd be having my tea in front of the bed at 6 o'clock. It wasn't really the place for me. So as I got better and better and became a little bit more independent, it was thought to move me on. And really, I moved back into the community. I moved back to the scheme and place I'd grown up in, of Garden to a 24-hour support accommodation where there were 3 other people. I felt happy, I was supported, everything was going well, and it was just brilliant. But I obviously became more and more independent because at the time I decided to go to college. And before I got ill, I was doing work. I decided, oh well, I'll go and get a qualification to work, something that I've been doing before I got ill. So in September of 2019, I headed off to college and became more independent. And it was decided that becoming more independent, I didn't need 24-hour support. I didn't need to live in a group home where there was staff awake all the time. And again, I moved. So yeah, I've had a few moves. So I moved to here, but this was a slightly different place. There was staff around, but they went to bed at 10:30, great fun. In the August of that year, I qualified as a community worker, with being more involved in church, and was getting involved in a lot of other things in my life. I was really starting to become a person I was, but unfortunately, my life turned upside down in 2017. I had definitely a friend who committed suicide. Boy, did it hit me hard. After my own attempt, I thought, wait a minute, why didn't I notice the signs? Why didn't I notice the symptoms? Why couldn't I help? Because he seemed happy on Friday. But by the Tuesday, he never knew he would get devastating news. He would get end his own life. So again, as I became more and more independent, I decided that it was time for me to move back to my own flat. But just before I moved back to my own flat, I got the devastating news that my mother had breast cancer. But I still moved. Still moved in March of 2010. I still moved house, and I moved to this place. I could have picked a better photo. So I moved there. I had 12 years there, so as much as I got a very full grammar presentation with, it is certainly not going to be like the last words going to bust through that door and say this is your life. But I'll try and capture it. So as I said, I moved. I moved in 2010, and it was brilliant. I had my own kitchen, my own bathroom, my own living room. I was supported by cornerstone. But there were a few problems. Staff walked about with pinpoint alarms, then you could open the door, and a whole load of other things. And basically, if we all wanted to go somewhere, we were all going. So no, Bruce, I'm not getting the same train home as you. We're not even no chain gang anymore. That's what it felt like. Felt like we were going to a chain gang.
I think you were going to say that.
I had about 3 years there, and in the first 17 months there, the first 17 months there were the hardest. My mum lost her battle with cancer, my grandma, my mum's mum passed away, and ending up with my dad passing away from suicide. So in 2011, I had lost all of my family. I had nobody. And at the same time, the service was tendered by the city council. And I went to, I have to say, a brilliant organisation, small spoon. I am a trustee in the organisation now, Sea Change Scotland. Sea Change came in, they unpicked everything. So I first met Alistair. I first met Alistair when he came to work for Sea Change. But they unpicked all the red tape. We no longer became a chain gang. The pinpoint alarms went away. In fact, we discovered if staff had pushed them, they didn't even work. The door alarms came off everything. Obviously, I was starting to get more and more involved in the community. By this point, I'd been a local community councillor in Aberdeen. I was doing lots of things in the community. there are a few, obviously, and then, I don't know if it's a silly moment or a daft moment, but I decided I want to go back into education. And I've just, not long ago, completed my veterinary nurse degree. You know what they say, don't work with animals and children. I've got to do both. So yeah, something else I did, and I'm looking at Karen, because if you want to know more about it, speak to Karen, is partners and policy making. I have to say, the first weekend broke me. I kind of got over the 9 months Julie rebuilding me, and I would like to thank Julie very much for all her support. Something else recently I've got involved in, you can speak to Brett, is working for change, and I'm loving it, Brett. I just want to get down to that meaty issue. And I've got to talk about Brett again next Thursday, sorry. Thank you, it's only an hour. And of course, I got involved with the coming home stuff and everything. I'm also involved with the upgrade with Keith, and I'm looking at Polly, but it's taken a woman to replace Keith Everington. So something locally that I'm really, really passionate about is a third sector play called Salvia Aberdeen. Salvia Aberdeen brings together the third sector in the whole of the North East. Now, I'm going to jump down, hopefully not too much of a jump. You can argue, for those of you who know Aberdeen, we can argue, Tracy's gone. Does anyone else know Aberdeen? Right. What would you class as the top end of Union Street? The Castle Gate or Holborn Street?
I'd say Castle Gate.
Right. So this is the bottom end, as I call it. This is the place at the bottom end. This is me up at the top end. It takes 2.5 hours for that plane to move down Union Street. 2.5 hours. And of course, we just pulled off our fourth. Shot that, our fourth awards, and the third, our team. But there's something unique about it all, and it's quite hilarious. Dylan here did Project Search, and was told he'd never work. He's now working at P&J Live. Adele, mental health. Emily, oh my word, if you heard her story, she lives in Orkney, Fort Help, and had cancer when she was young, 4 helicopters, has been brought back with it several times. Kate, Amanda, and Susan there have all got alopecia and brought together an alopecia group. And then obviously there's myself. But there's one exclusive thing. There is one thing about Salvia Aberdeen. It brings together the media. Because this weird gentleman there is the content producer for Boyd or Scotland, John Slater, and brings the media side of. So as I became more and more independent, it was decided, and some issues in my property, but we will go that, for me to move. The service, again, during the lockdown was re-tendered. It was a step backwards, and everything seemed to go backwards, waking night, and everything like that. Staff back, clear check for hours. But I've got to share a story about how I found out about where I moved to. It's quite funny. I was at the General Assembly from an elder of the Church of Scotland. I was at the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland, which is made up of ministers, elders, readers, and people who make up the Church of Scotland in Scotland and further afield. On the Tuesday, I noticed I'd missed a phone call from Manchester. And an email. Oh no. They'd been doing an audit, they found debts or something weak. But no, it wasn't. It was to offer me a new flat. At the time, I was there with the Reverend Scott Rennie and the Reverend Peter Johnston. Turned to them and said, well, what do you think? It's very hilarious what people think, blah blah blah. And I laugh at this one because I can say, and I don't know if many people can say this, that I voted at the 2022 General Assembly for ministers of Word and Sacraments carried same-sex marriage from City of New Office New House. Wow. I didn't realise there would be a lot of work. you know, I said yes to the house on the 4th of June, and stupidly worked 20 days, which worked out the 24th of June, but didn't realise it went into July. You know, the next struggle. But I moved, and what a lovely house I moved to. So I'm here, I'm here in this ground floor flat. Brilliant neighbours, absolutely wonderful. But the biggest thing, after an argument with your manager, and I remember the email, no, I'm not trying to teach you how to suck eggs, but I have done parts and policy making, nor am I trying to tell you how to do your job. I fancy my own sport, my own SDS budget option 1. I got it. She had an argument with me one day, and the next day she came back and said yes. So I've got 2 lovely ladies. Sylvia, who comes in on a Wednesday and with my cooking, make sure that I eat healthily, and Alison comes in and helps me with cleaning. Because I'm not the greatest cleaner in the world. But mind you, which bloke is. I've also got another lady, Karen, who helped me on a voluntary basis with finances and monitoring my finances. So, as I said earlier, I'm now giving back to my community because I became a director of Sea Change. I took over from John Dalrymple as co-chair of Values into Action Scotland. I'm also, as some of you may know, Dates and Mates, Scotland Kids Own Charity, and a director there. And I'm so well now, the care manager has put this to the team. But one big achievement this year, apart from working for Change and everything else, is that I did the Aberdeen Hill Walk for a local charity called Waste Food. Sadly, it's still at the Dundee Hill Walk. I'm still waiting for you to shave your beard, because you said I raised over 800 quid to shave your beard all the time. But I raised £810, even though this year we were in a downturn. But we too empower families and children to connect and play with others. I think for me now, the only way is up. You know, I know I'm going to have down days. I know that it's not going to be easy some days. I know it's going to be horrible some days. But hey ho. Oh, and it's not there too much. So I'll turn it down. No, the end is not near Frank Sinatra. It's not time for me to face the final cartoon. But most of all, I do all my way with the support and help of everybody around me. And to those of you who have been involved in helping this work, thank you. Thank you.
But I think that it's one of the themes in here is about reputation. So, as I remember, you know, he's involved with the church, he's involved with a local councillor, he does all these values things, all the sort of things that people are prevented from doing. All the reputational stuff is negative. You are a problem. You are somebody who needs medicated. You are somebody who needs to be managed. And a lot of the situations that I've been involved in for many years has been, the things that have been difficult have not been when bullying's been difficult, it's been when sport hasn't been adequately focused. Now, nobody recognised at one point that Christmas...
I was going to say, you're going to tell a chicken and egg story.
Egg story, it's got to be done. Nobody had recognised that Christmas was a crap time for, despite the suicide, despite the family loss, it was going to be a horrible time and nobody put anybody on with him. Think about it. You know, and so he took a dive and he was feeling suicidal and I said, I'll come down and we tried to get some food and he's just said there was somebody helping him to cook because when you're depressed, what don't you do? You don't look after yourself. And he needs some mouldy food in his house, including an egg. An egg, I think, which was dated. Was it 6 months out of date. And I was like, thank God you didn't crack that. So we can let people down. We were letting people down. it was, if we give people the right support, it's amazing what people can do. And yet, a lot of the narrative, we could have written a report and said, oh, you know, he's attention seeking on Christmas and New Year. You know what I mean? The nonsense that we write about people to justify our positions is unbelievable. Thank you so much, William.
And the last time, just looking at the room, the last time, William, Danielle, Ashley, Karen, and me were in the room. Yes. The weekend after we went into lockdown, so let's hope it doesn't happen.
Oh, let's not do that again.
Let's not do that again.
Right, thank you. Right, Joy, do you want to join us up here and go to our conversation? Yes. Join us up, we'll both stand up together. So, Joyce come across, not just for today, but all the way from Canada, so even more impressive than Marie. But do you want to just say how you got to know Michael and how we ended up where we are today?
Okay.
What was that?
So first of all, I just want to thank you all so much for being here for what everyone's already shared. Honestly, I'm filled with gratitude and taken aback because all of this is a really grand surprise, like coming across what Individual Scotland is doing, and then even everything with my friend Michael. And I'm excited to share about him, and he's given me the permission to share a little of his story. He couldn't be here today. He really wanted to, but just due to circumstances, he actually just got discharged from hospital, which was a huge success. And he's made his way back to Blackpool, and so the timing just didn't work out. But I've been sending him videos and pictures all day, and I'm here today because of him. And I'm here really to represent him and talk about what our friendship was and why it's important, and like how it affected not only his mental health recovery, but what it did for me, actually, how it helped me. So I met Michael on a forum, basically that complained about the medical system. And I'll tell you my background. I have a master's degree in social work, and I worked in the medical field in Canada for several years in a number of different positions. So I didn't actually work specifically with people who had autism, but I worked with addictions, mental illness, autoimmune disorders. I've done a bunch of different roles in that capacity. And so I often experienced the wall and the dysfunction and the abuse of power, and I saw it directly in many different capacities with different professionals. And so my primary focus and job was the patients and families, but I also had to often deal with other workers who were taking advantage of things, and it was just very, very hard. There was days I'd be going home in tears and just all kinds of stuff. So I did the best I could to sort of fight within the system, and I like to think that, it's not all bad. Like, people are really just trying to do the best they can with what they know, but there is a lot of ignorance, right? And there's a lot of lack of education and awareness and a lot of systemic issues. So I left the medical system during the pandemic. It's a long story, and this is where I met Michael. And I was so down on life and humanity and feeling lost as to what to do next. And so we connected because of something he said that was honestly so interesting, and it was a perspective that I had never really heard before. And so we just started chatting online, and eventually we ended up talking, and I was like, oh, you're in Scotland, that's so cool. So it was really just about, what is Scotland like, what is Canada like? And then we had this sort of shared thing about the medical system, and I was like, what, you're in the hospital? So he was telling me about that, and he was telling me about his autism, and then all of a sudden we realized we had all these common interests, actually, like art, music, and stuff about politics. And so Michael is probably one of the most intelligent people I've ever met, and a lot of people don't know that because he has difficulty expressing himself, unless he's comfortable and he knows you and really wants to. But I think what happened in hospital for him, and there was legitimate reasons for him to be brought into acute care, but then what happened after that is just tragic. It just went from being a difficult situation to snowballing into misunderstanding after misunderstanding. And anytime he tried to really express himself, and that would sometimes come out as anger, he would be sedated. And so I believe that he was abused and that his human rights were massively infringed upon in many ways. And I've encouraged him to file a human rights complaint. I'd be willing to help him with that. And so when I started talking to him, the thing that people don't know about, especially at the hospital, was that he was helping me. He was helping me. Like, I was really down and out, and he was the one that was like, why don't you watch this video? Or like, check out this song, and have you thought about it this way? And I woke up one day and I was like, I can't believe I'm talking to someone in Scotland who's in the hospital, who has had so many challenges in their life, and they're thinking about how to help me. And I'm coming from a professional background, and like, I just couldn't believe it. Just the whole thing was floored me. And so there was a shift at some point in our friendship where it started speaking about mutual support, because although we have this connection and this friendship, I did have a background and understanding of some of the things that he was going through, and how the medical professionals might be misunderstanding him, because he would tell me certain things about meetings, and I was like, okay, but did you say this? And he's like, no. And I'm like, you have to say that. And he's like, oh, really? So he started to just, like, it was really just little things, like, try to elaborate on this, or like, that particular subject, don't talk about that. Because there were certain interesting things that he was exploring that when he would talk about, they would misperceive it in all these ways. And so, and at that point, he was just so angry. Like, he was so bitter and so just like being down with the whole experience that, like, they weren't able to really see his ability. And so they were seeing him as clinically depressed and all these other labels. It was insane to me. And some of the medications and stuff that were being used, I don't know if they were really helping. And then, so it wasn't like, the reason he was like that was because he was in the hospital, right? So it was this like catch-22 thing where he's feeling really down and he's in the hospital, so they have to keep him there. But the reason he's feeling down is because he's in the hospital. So I was like, we have to just get you out. And this is what we need to do to get there. And these are my suggestions. So that's all I really did. I just gave some suggestions. And we continued this friendship, and he was like, why don't you come to Scotland? And I was like, I really need a holiday. And that was it. I came here to explore Scotland, to meet Michael in person, and to thank him for what he did to me, or what he did for me, like, in all honesty. And he laughs about it, because even when we met Alistair was like, well, thank you so much for helping Michael. And I'm like, no, like, he helped me. And then Alistair was like, oh yeah, I know what you mean. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, he actually was the one helping me. So, and again, like I said, it shifted, and we started to mutually support each other. And like, he has an expertise and a knowledge in things that I just don't have. Like, when we walk around together, you can see stuff that no one would ever see, because I think it's just his autistic mind, right? He's high functioning autistic, but like, he'll look at details and things that I just think are really unique and incredible. And so it's just the way the system is set up right now. They have this idea that, like, put people with conditions in this kind of special needs group. And I think that what needs to happen is better integration, because we can learn from people with autism, right? It's like, we're thinking that we're helping them, but they actually are helping us, like, in so many ways. And so that's my dream and my vision. And I came across Alistair working with Michael, and as soon as Alistair started talking, I thought, Michael, this is one of the people that you should work with, because not everyone in the system has this understanding around trauma-informed care and, just advocacy and everything that Alistair's doing, and other people here that have shared today. Like, I'm really inspired, and I think that change can happen, and it comes through things like this, right? Like, coming together to protest, affect change with, advocating for policy regulations to change, and just more and more people speaking up, providing education and awareness. And like, this little story is like, Michael, it's not just so little, like, this was a huge thing, like, for him to get out of what was really like a prison. And it was such a hindrance that he had mild PTSD from the hospital stay. It's not his autism that's the issue, it was how he was handled in the hospital. And for so long, like, he was there for 9 months recently, but before that, I think it's the third time that he was admitted. And it was, so anyway, he's doing well, he's resting right now, and he's like working on, before all this happened, he had a property, a job that he loved, he was living on the Shetland Islands, totally independent. He's a 27-year-old young man, was like physical energy like I've never seen before, and an intelligence that's astounding. And I thought, how can this person be stuck in the hospital being told all these lies? So he's going back hopefully to work on and he's working on some property repairs and stuff like that, but he's doing all that, and he did all of that. Like I provided some framework, and like there was some connection there, I think, that motivated him, but that's the whole point, right? It was the organic friendship. It wasn't that I was a paid professional. Like I was genuinely interested in him as a person and his experience and what we were exploring together.
And I think that was the key. Was well, there's a couple of key points I think that it's worth noting about the situation with Michael and yourself. Is that first of all, and this is relevant, is that the hospital reached out to me and said, "We are not sure what to do with this young man. We're not making that much progress. Can you help?" Now that was absolutely, we have to give the system, we have to give that hospital so much credit for that, because that's not what we generally hear. What we generally hear is, "We're fine, nothing to see here, off you pop." As I started speaking to him, I started exploring, what happened in terms of your autism diagnosis? How does it, do you get overwhelmed by stimulus? How do you cope in social situations? How do things affect you? And he said, "No more than the next man." And I said, "Well, but how do you know? How do you know what the next man's feeling?" Nobody had taken that time, and so, but rather than flinching back at that, the hospital welcomed me in. They actually paid for me to support him, and to write a bit of a plan, and that we were doing that, and he was participating in that with me. He was still just sussing me out because he'd been let down so many times, right? And then Joy came across, and I could instantly see in the interactions with Joy that it was like a light switch, because Joy was genuine. Joy was not a paid person in his life. There was no other angles on it, and he was behaving differently. Now, he wasn't behaving in a way that somebody who had severe clinical depression, we can't turn that off on. And so he was interested, he was trying new things, he was talking about things that he was passionate about, and we sport just to go and see Mati together, which was so weird that somebody didn't remember. So he made journeys that were difficult, that were stressful, that that he would time to process. And he achieved all that, and that helped us to write the plan that said, we think he shouldn't be on a CTO, we think we should listen to Michael and support him to make the next steps, even though, like we say, we recognise that it's not an easy journey and we can have back steps, and we're not being flippant about this. So part of this story is about support, is about family, it's about relationships, it's about real things, and it's not just about how many bodies you've got in the room. And the withdrawal of that, if Joy hadn't been here, it would be much harder to prove what I saw in Michael. So.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that I'll just briefly share about the story thing.
Yeah.
That was so amazing.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so Michael came up with this idea. So again, he's very, very creative artistically. He does like animation and like he draws and writes and all this stuff. And so he actually does animation though, anyway. So he was wanting to do all this creative stuff, and because I had shared a fair amount about my story, what I've been through, and we realized that we had really different backgrounds. Our upbringings, he grew up in a very, very strict family. He had a lot of limitation because of his autism, and my family was very, very liberal, and all kinds of differences that we had, and yet we had this connection around all these common things. And so he's like, "Why don't we write each other's story? I'll write your story and you write mine, and then we'll bring all the stuff together that we've talked about in terms of politics, philosophy, religion, modern society, medical system, mental health, illness, recovery, blah, blah, blah." And Dr. Gormati was a big part of that. And he said, "We'll put it all together, and we'll do it for each other, and then we share it with people to help others, and we'll heal hearts." That's what he said to me. Like, I'm not kidding you, like, this is not, like, I didn't make this up. And so, he presented himself very differently, obviously, to the hospital personnel, and he didn't, like, he was angry, right? So, anyway, I was like, that's an amazing idea, and he was relentless. He did not forget about it, he reminded me about it every day, in fact, and unless I wrote some notes about it on a daily basis, I wouldn't hear the end of it. So, he's very, very focused on this, writing the story, and again, I think probably a little bit part of, like, his experience in life, and it was a good thing, because honestly, if I didn't have that, I don't know if I would have started to get on it anyway, and so, he was motivating, and what I realized with this did, so just coming from with a social work background and a therapeutic background, is that this idea, intuitively, what it does is it takes you out of your story into somebody else's, so it gives you another perspective, and then it also shares a common goal, which provides purpose and service, and then also helping others, right, and connection. And I was like, wow, you just created a therapeutic model, Michael. Like, this is amazing, and maybe something else out there exists like that, but it's the way that he structured it, and it was like really well thought out, and it was intuitive, and it was just came from a place of wanting to do something creative because he was going nuts in the hospital. He was just like sitting there like mush, right? Like he didn't want to go to baking class, or he didn't want to go to knitting. And like I know all the nurses, there's some great nurses and doctors there that are well-meaning even. Like I'm not here to bash the individual people. It's just that none of his talents or skills were being drawn out or utilized, and he was just withering. Like I couldn't believe this 27-year-old man was withering like this. And so I was like happy to do this with him. And so we are actually working on this project. And it's a bit slow coming right now because we both had quite a bit going on this last few weeks to a month, but it is there. And this morning we were talking about it, and I was like, what if this became a thing? Like, what if we created some sort of mental health awareness or mental health recovery thing, where we could get groups of people together who struggle with mental health issues, and they could connect each other and write each other's story. And this could be a way for people to experience the same thing that we did, right? Because it helped me so much. It helped me so much to get me out of my own stuff and get out of my own way because of the things that I was struggling with. And it did the same for him because he realized, like, wow, I'm talking to this person who's so different from me and has so many different other kinds of challenges, and yet, like, we can help each other through it. So, yeah, that's kind of what Michael showed me anyway.
Thanks very much.